What's up, everybody? It's Brad at Ghost Gaming, and we're going to do a 250F setup. If you haven't seen the 450 setup, I just finished that video. I recommend go back and watch it. We're going to get in here on the time tech. Alrighty, we're going to get our 250F bike. Alright. So the nice thing about your 250 setup, if you did your 450 setup, the suspension transfers over. I mean, theoretically, if you look at it, I'm sure if you guys have been to pro races, you know, they Honda, Yamaha, Kawi, Suzuki, KTM, TMs, brand like, they all run the same suspension, same stuff, basically. You know, obviously their setups are slightly different, but as far as the equipment goes, it's the same. So we're going to load our 250 setup. Now this is why in my first video on the 450 I told you guys to make two separate files, because when I loaded my 450 setup, the gearing felt really weird. So I definitely had to change it. So the suspension again is identical to my 450. Fork side, you're going to go 2 to the left for fork, and you're going to go 2 to the rear for rear swing arm, and then preload 2 to the left, 2 to the left again for rear swing arm for under preload. Under fork and shock absorber, you're going to go 2 to the right, you're going to make it stiffer. Low extension speed, 2 to the right again. High compression speed, 2 to the left. High extension speed, 2 to the left. For rear swing arm and shock absorber, we're going to go 2 to the right, making it stiffer. On low compression speed, low extension speed, we're going to make it stiffer again, going 2 to the right. High compression speed, we are going to go 2 to the left, and high extension speed, we're going to go 2 to the right. Now if you watch the 250 video, all you got to do is just load the setup, and it will transfer this, because this is the same suspension setup that I have on my 450. It worked really well on the 250. I was quite surprised. Just because I'm so used to Monster Energy Supercross 3. Again, you know, like I said in the 450 video, the setups are dependent for each bike, class, and manufacturer. Where in this game, it doesn't seem like that's the case, which is nice. You know, I just happened like, well, I gotta start somewhere. Let me see if my 450 setup works well on my 250. I honestly didn't think it would, but I figured out, what the heck. At least I have a starting point. And it worked actually surprisingly quite well. I was super stoked, because both bikes actually handle pretty much the same. Only difference is power. Gear ratio, this is where you have to create 2 files, because on my 250 or on my 450s, I always run a short gear ratio. on all of my motocross games. Motocross, supercross, doesn't matter. On a 450, I'm running short gear ratios. All of my motocross and supercross games, when I run a 250, I always run medium gear ratio. It's just what I have found over the years of playing these games work the best with these bikes. I did try running the short gear ratio with the gear ratio setup that I had on the 450. On this bike, it did not work well at all. Third gear felt a mess. It was way too long. It did weird things. So is what I did is I came in here, I changed my final to medium. First gear, I went down 1. Second gear, I went left 2. Third gear, I kept it in the middle. Fourth gear, I kept it in the middle. And fifth gear, I kept it in the middle. In a lot of these tracks, you're mainly going to be second, third, and fourth. With the suspension setup that we have, it seems that this type of a gear ratio works best for what we're using it for. Again, you can change that stuff to your needs. By brake response, again, I'm always running aggressive brake response. Accelerating, I'm running always aggressive acceleration. Wheelbase, again, because of our suspension setup, because it's given us the best traction, you want to run long, because it's going to help keep that front end on the ground coming out of corners when you really get on the throttle hard. But it's also going to keep the bike really stable at high speeds. So when you're coming into those corners and you're hitting those breaker bumps, which is usually where the bike starts to lose control, is when you're all over the brakes and the braking bumps. This long wheelbase is going to really help keep the bike stable there. If you want to corner a little bit better and have a more agile bike, you can use medium or short. However, I will warn you, if you use the medium or short on this setup, you will have a hard time keeping the front end on the ground. More so than you already do running it with long. And the reason being is just the traction the bike's getting. If you run a shorter wheelbase, it just makes it that much harder. The bike will be super nimble and really easy to control. However, at high speeds, the bike becomes extremely unstable. So that's some plus or minuses to the wheelbase. I always recommend just run long, because you don't lose that much. In the cornering that you so-called would gain, you don't lose enough for you to really notice a whole lot. Unless you went from long to short, then yes, you will notice that. But going from long to medium, you're not going to notice hardly anything. So we'll go out on the track so you can see how the bike performs on this setup. Now again, you know, we all ride and play different. I've had a lot of really good success with some of you guys that use my Honda setup on Supercross 3. I've yet to get any negative feedback from anybody on that setup. But this works best for me based on how I ride and play the game. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect for you. It's definitely a great starting point for you guys, and then you can make your minor adjustments to, you know, transmission or suspension, you know, based upon your skill and riding. But this is definitely a really good start for you guys. It's perfect for me. I love this setup. Based on how I ride in this game, you know, this setup for me works extremely well, which I'm sure it's going to work well for a lot of you guys. Shit, flying came up right there. As you can see, this thing just sits right in the corners. Alright. Well guys, as you can see, I mean, the setup works well. It's definitely a good starting point for you guys. I hope you enjoy the setup. It is difficult to figure these setups out sometimes and actually get them to work on different bikes, this, that, and the other, so I know I'm saving you guys a lot of time by doing it myself. I appreciate you guys taking the time to check the video out. I hope I'm helping you guys out here. And if you could, help me out. If you like the content, please like and subscribe to the video. I will be posting some more setup videos on the two-strokes. Those are coming up next. So, we will see you at the next video. Thanks guys. Have a good one.